Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Situn Halimah. I'm from the first semester of English education. I will read about everything in its place, three context set, language listen. Have you ever gone grocery shopping without a list? It might seem like a good idea at first, but then you wonder aimlessly. You have some vague idea of what you need and why you need it, blah blah blah, but that idea isn't concrete or detailed. In the end, it's amazing that you end up getting the things you really wanted or need. If you do manage to remember them, it's only by chance. That's kind of how it is to learn vocabulary out of context. You can present your students with vocabulary lists and grammar exercise, but without any knowledge of why they're learning what they're learning. These activities feel aimless to them. If your students do acquire knowledge without any context, it's probably by chance. But setting context in a language lesson can be tricky. A foreign language classroom, more than almost any other kind of classroom, can feel disconnected from the real life context in which the material being taught will be used. Setting context in a way that feel natural rather than forced can be very challenging. So how can you bring context into your language lesson? What concrete steps can you take to make vocabulary lists and grammar concepts come to life in an environment which often feels so artificial? Why is context important? First, in case you need any more persuade, here a brief explanation of exactly what context is and why it's so foundational to a great language lesson. Context is simply put the entire reason for learning a language. Without context, the tasks of language learning are nothing more than meaningless ritual. Your students are memorizing lists of words they will never use. They're acquiring grammar rule for situations that exist only within the covers of a textbook. Essentially, without context, your entire curriculum takes place within imaginary universe that no one cares about. Context provides the real-life situation in which language is used. Setting context allows your students to get at least a simulation of real-life practice. It may not be practical to take them on a trip to experience the target language in person, but you can give them a context that prepares them for the day when they might do just that. Context is the most authentic motivator in the language classroom. Sure, you can try give out praise or motivate your students with good grades and compliment. But the best motivation is intrinsic. Your students want the satisfaction of knowing they can accomplish a challenging and useful task. When language is put in context, it gives students that intrinsic motivation they need. So note that you know teaching language in context is important. How exactly do you do it? How to set the context in a language lesson. It's not easy to give a language lesson a meaningful context in the classroom. In this post, we'll cover some concrete ideas for creating context-based lesson. But first, here are some tricks you can use to introduce context in any lesson. Build connection. It's one of the five C's of language learning for a reason. Connection are critical to the process of language learning precisely because they make it easier to set a context. One way to do this is by connecting the subject of the lesson to something in the life of your students. For example, who watch the royal wedding? Can anyone describe a wedding they've been to? Let's brainstorm some words we use to talk about weddings. You might also make a connection to a TV show or a celebrity that your student enjoy. Another helpful way to build connection is by starting with something they already know about their own language. Give me some word to describe this picture. What do these words have in common? They're all adjective, blah blah blah. Let's talk about adjective in the target language. Provide examples of the real life situation in which the vocabulary would be used in if food vocabulary is on the agenda. Begin by talking about what it's like to go to a restaurant in the target country culture. If you if you're teaching vocabulary about travel, talk about situation your students might encounter at an airport, train station, or hotel. For example, you could show your intermediate French class the Fluent You video working at a hotel in Paris. When you take serial word videos like music videos, movie trailers, news and inspiring talk and turn them into personalized language learning lesson. All of the videos for each language are categorized by level, format, and topic, so it's easy to find a video that's appropriate for this demonstrating real life context on virtually any subject to any student. Keep the same context throughout the lesson. It's important to keep your goals in view for the entire duration of the lesson. Switching from one context to another can be confusing. Provide a variety of activities to practice speaking, reading, writing, and listening to text and conversation that fit within the same context. For example, if you're teaching vocabulary for visiting the doctor's office, you might have students listen to a record conversation between a doctor and patient, read an informational article about healthcare in the target culture, and create an skit or a dialogue on the topic to act out for the class. Here are some more ideas to bring context to live in your classroom. Ready, set, context. Three context setting for language lesson. Here are some specific examples of lesson in which the context is clearly set and remains clear throughout the lesson. Visit to a restaurant. Begin by talking to the students about a recent visit to a popular restaurant, preferable one that they consider a favorite. Talk about the foods they serve, the menu, and your interaction with the servers. Then move on to describing what a restaurant is like in the target culture. What are some different kinds of restaurants that are popular? Cafes, pubs, fast food, and extra. What kinds of foods will they be likely to serve? What are the menus like? If you have access to any sort of rally, such as menu or photos, this can bring life to the discussion. Allow the discussion to move to the kind of language you use in a restaurant. What do you say to a server when you order something? How do you ask for more information about an item on the menu? How might you talk about the meal which those at the table with you? Next, model some of the vocabulary that might be used in this conversation, asking the class to repeat the words after you. When they've heard the words a few times, try giving them a passage to listen to which relevant vocabulary. For example, this transcript and exercise from Andrea are ideal for advanced Spanish students. When they've had some practice with this word and phrases, ask them to compose and enact their own creative skits taking place in a restaurant in the target culture. If you have plastic, food, and an authentic table settings, it can add to the sense of overall context. Slang word and idioms. Begin by asking students to brainstorm words and expressions that mean something different from their literal translation, e.a. raining cats and dogs, cats an arm and a leg. Ponder the difficulties or trying to translate such expression to someone who doesn't know the language. Next, go over a list of common expression in the target language. The nice thing about this is that many of such idioms are actually quite funny. For example, the French have the wonderful experience a cute toy that tastes oignoins takes care of your onions for telling someone to mind his own business. You can find other funny idioms in various languages on this TED blog list as well as all over the Fluent You Learner blogs. Here are just a few examples. French idioms by the Basel, 22 delicious authentic phrases. Word to the quiz. 9. Famous Spanish proverbs and idioms. Speak English naturally with 37 common English idioms. The mega list of 50 plus Chinese colors with related idiom and culture notes. Then you can read a passage or act out a funny scan employing as many of these idioms as possible. Be as dramatic as possible with gesture, voice, and even props and costume for maximum effect. Next, give the students a fill in the blank activity in which they must choose the slang word or experience that makes the most sense as a compassion. Finally, have students write their own self stories using as many of the slang words and experience as possible and then share them. Holiday celebration. This is best done in the context of a holiday you're presently celebrating. For example, if it's close the to Easter, you might Make a connection to the cheese Qingming festival, which, like Easter, is a superior holiday which themes of death and rebirth. Present information about the target culture holiday, and then ask students to create and Venn diagram revealing similarities and differences to the holiday they celebrate in their own culture. In the process, home in a vocabulary words for talking about the celebration, balloons, quotes, decoration, and etc. Next, give students a simple reading in the target language about the holiday. Finally, ask students to record videos in which they recreate that particular holiday celebration using relevant vocabulary. More than anything else, context will bring language to life for your students. So if nothing else seems to the working blah blah blah, try putting your lesson in their proper context and see what a difference it can make. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.